coming to you at a local level with chapters locally. And if you're interested in participating in Seawheel, I hope you will join our wonderful family. Then go ahead and look at seawheel.org online and find out some more information about us. And also for you men who are here, although we were started originally for women, I have 3 brothers, men and women, boys and girls, brothers and sisters. We support everyone. We want to really help people moving in the clean energy industry. All right. Next slide, please. So for all of you on the call today, with all of the range and skills that you have, please introduce yourself in the chat box. Tell us your name, tell us where you're located, and tell us what's exciting to you in the world of clean transportation. Today, we're going to be talking about this transition and what it means. Clean transportation is really exciting. And one of the reasons it's so exciting is because it will have such a big impact. About 30% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation industry. But what's unique about transportation is that all of us can really have an impact. I live in a condo in downtown Orlando. It's difficult for me to get solar panels. It's difficult for me to get a wind turbine, but I can sure as heck get an electric vehicle, and I plan to in September of this year. So I'm really thinking about it. Right now I've got a hybrid, and I realize that hybrids are probably going to be obsolete, right? Because what are the main barriers to people getting into electric vehicles? One, it's been price, and still an electric vehicle is a little bit more expensive than an internal combustion engine, but we expect that to change probably just in the next few years. We'll hear more about that from our panelists. And other barriers have been range anxiety, right? How long am I going to be able to drive on this battery? And when will I have access to an EV charger? All these problems are going away, and our transition is going to be good, and we can all participate in supporting the Paris Climate Accord and our goal for net zero emissions by 2050. So it's a particularly exciting time. And today, with our panelists, what I'd like you to get is 3 different perspectives. A perspective from the government, so from the Department of Energy, Vehicle Technologies Office, a perspective from an automotive manufacturer, Toyota, and a perspective from a professional who's in the clean energy recruitment industry. So what kind of skill sets do I need to become successful in this field? So one thing I want to ask you is don't forget your questions. I know you're going to have questions, and what we're going to do is each panelist is going to have 10 minutes, and then at the end, we're going to have our questions. So if you've got a question, either jot it down on a note or put it right in the chat box. Don't forget it. If you put it in the chat box, I ask that you address it to the panelist that your question will go to, and try to keep it succinct. We want to get to as many questions as possible. So thank you all for being here. This is going to be terrific. I'm going to start off right now by introducing our first panel speaker, and she is Margaret Smith. Margaret Smith is a technology manager in the U.S. Department of Energy Vehicle Technologies Office. She manages a range of technologies that reduce transportation emissions and costs. As part of the Technology Integration Program, Margaret provides objective, unbiased data and real-world lessons to inform research and support decisions for cities and regions working to implement clean transportation. Margaret also provides direction to the Clean Cities Coalition Network. She oversees work performed by the DOE National Laboratories, and she coordinates energy equity and environmental justice initiatives. Margaret has been working with the Vehicle Technologies Office for over a decade. She's a very busy lady, and we're just thrilled to have her here on our Seawheel panel today. I could hand it over to Margaret Smith. Janine, are you able to?
Thank you very much.
And it'll be the next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all and introduce some of what the Department of Energy is doing to facilitate our nation's transition to a clean transportation system. The U.S. Department of Energy is tasked with developing and deploying the technologies that will deliver a clean energy revolution. Secretary Granholm is passionate about tackling our climate emergency and deploying solutions that will create millions of good paying jobs. Next slide. First, I want to emphasize the important role transportation plays in our energy economy and why it is so important to DOE. As a country, we depend on reliable, affordable, safe, and efficient transportation. The transportation sector is one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. And transportation is evolving very quickly. Next slide. It's important to realize that transportation is a system of systems, which is highly interactive, highly interdependent, and very complex. Changes to one part of the system propagate through this network and result in changes to many other parts of the system. As a result, our research at the Vehicle Technologies Office needs to address not only how these systems work individually, but how they fit together, interact, and affect one another. Next slide. The Vehicle Technologies Office, or VTO, develops advanced transportation technologies that increase domestic energy security, improve vehicle energy efficiency and emissions, and reduce operating costs. The VTO team includes 5 programs. Most of the programs are focused on research and development. Our batteries and electrification team invests in advanced battery research, electric vehicles and charging technologies. Advanced combustion systems and fuels leads engine research, including engines that use advanced fuels, natural gas, propane, alcohol blends, and biodiesel, and optimization of fuel engine vehicle systems. The Materials Technologies program manages research and development for lightweight, high-strength materials and manufacturing that can increase vehicle efficiency. Energy Efficient Mobility Systems funds energy impact research related to innovative transportation systems, practices, and vehicle technologies. For example, automated and connected vehicles that can communicate with traffic control systems and each other, ride sharing and ride hailing services, first mile, last mile freight delivery, and truck platooning. I am part of our technology integration program, which is the outreach and deployment arm of VTO. Next slide. Technology integration activities provide unbiased data and real-world lessons learned to support local decision-making. We also help the research and development programs identify technology gaps and plan future work. Our core activity areas are shown on this slide, and I'll talk about our Clean Cities Coalitions and financial assistance today, but I encourage you to visit the Alternative Fuels Data Center website and fueleconomy.gov website to learn more about our other activities. There's a lot of great tools and resources and information about alternative fuels on those 2 websites, and I can put those links in the chat after my presentation. Next slide. Our technology focus areas include light, medium, and heavy-duty vehicles, alternative fuels, vehicles and infrastructure, and energy-efficient mobility systems. Next slide. At the national level, we collaborate with federal agencies, fuel providers, industry associations, and equipment manufacturers. For example, we work closely with the U.S. Department of Transportation on their Alternative Fuel Corridor Designation Program. We also have a long-standing partnership with the National Park Service and have implemented a lot of clean transportation projects at different national parks. Next slide. Partnerships are a core tenet of our national network of Clean Cities Coalitions. More than 75 DOE-designated Clean Cities coordinators work in communities across the country to implement alternative fuels, fuel-saving technologies, and new mobility choices. Coalition projects have helped to put nearly 1 million alternative fuel vehicles on the road. Coalitions work with diverse stakeholders that educate the public to educate the public, collaborate on transportation projects, and help identify research needs. Stakeholders include vehicle fleets of all shapes and sizes, both public and private organizations, product and service providers, from vehicle and engine manufacturers to fueling equipment suppliers. They also work with energy and environmental agencies at the federal, state, and local level, as well as alternative fuel and clean air advocacy organizations. Next slide. This picture shows our national network of Clean Cities coordinators gathered at one of our annual training workshops back when we were having in-person gatherings. Each of our Clean Cities coalitions is led by one or two Clean Cities coordinators. They serve as technology neutral and unbiased advisors with strong local stakeholder relationships. Across the national network, coordinators share experiences, information, and resources. I've listed a few of the many skills and responsibilities that our Clean Cities coordinators balance in their job. And the coordinators come from a wide variety of backgrounds. Some have an engineering background, some come from urban planning or communications or a variety of other perspectives. And all of them work to bring stakeholders together, assess their needs and interests, identify funding opportunities, develop project proposals. If the project is selected for funding, they manage project implementation. And then once they've successfully implemented an impactful project, they broadly share successes so other communities can replicate the innovative approaches. They host outreach events, develop trainings, educate policymakers, and actively engage stakeholders to work collaboratively toward their goals. These are the movers and shakers, the boots on the ground, the cat herders who ensure that communities adopt advanced vehicle technologies and have the technical assistance needed to successfully transition to a clean transportation future. Next slide. In addition to providing Clean Cities coalitions with training, technical assistance, and funding, DOE also has a workforce development program where we place university undergraduate and graduate students as interns at Clean Cities coalitions. Next slide. Last, I want to talk about DOE competitive funding awards. Each year, we release a funding solicitation seeking applications for a variety of Vehicle Technologies Office topic areas. We have funded over 600 technology integration projects. Some of our recently funded topics include living labs for energy efficient transportation, alternative fuel vehicle deployment and safety training, and rural new mobility solutions. If you want to learn more about what projects we've funded, visit the website on this slide. Additionally, you have a special opportunity this year to participate in the Vehicle Technologies Office Annual Merit Review, which is available online because of the pandemic. It's usually an in-person gathering in Washington, D.C. each summer. And during the Annual Merit Review, funding recipients present overviews of their projects. And all of the presentations from past years are available online at the Vehicle Technologies Office Annual Merit Review website. Next slide. Example of fund. Here's a high-level snapshot of our EV Community Partner projects awarded last year. The projects span electric vehicle and charging station planning, deployment, community engagement, and workforce development in 3 geographic areas: Minnesota, the Northwest, and Mid-Atlantic. Each of these projects has a different lead organization, team of Clean Cities coalitions, and community partners. All of them are implementing sub-projects that advance vehicle electrification and make the benefits of electric vehicles more accessible to underserved communities. So this is just 3 examples of the projects that we funded. And if you want to learn about other projects, I recommend checking out the information available on our website. Next slide. All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Margaret. That was wonderful. Now I'm going to introduce Amy Stanley, who is the Portfolio Planning Senior Manager for Toyota Motor North America's Advanced Product Strategy Team. Amy's team is responsible for making market-based recommendations for the light-duty vehicle market for both Toyota and Lexus. Amy's team developed the North American zero emissions vehicle and hybrid strategies by focusing on customer voice. With the focus on customers, the team works to deeply understand customer perspectives and forecast the future market. Amy, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for that introduction, Alexa. Let's move to the next slide, please. So back in 2015, Toyota globally announced its 2050 environmental challenge, which you see pictured here today. And we've just hit the start of the full-scale EV rollout from 2020. We've started launching EV vehicles in different places around the globe. And by 2025, we're committing to having electrified versions available for all of our models globally. 2030 is where things start to get more interesting. That's where we start to see a real strong share of major markets of products like EVs. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that pathway looks like from a customer perspective today. Next slide, please. So this is the current situation in the United States for adoption of electrified products. And this is all automakers that I'm showing you in these graphics. So you can see that hybrid is concentrated more in ZEV regulation states, but it is still dispersed across the US. What we see though is plug-in hybrids and EVs are much more concentrated in ZEV regulation spaces, although EVs have a little bit more leakage into non-ZEV areas of the country. And, you know, in terms of how we're doing in this space, we are definitely leading the way in the hybrid space. We were 69% of industry in 2021 so far. And in the plug-in hybrid space, we're 41% of industry calendar to date this year. In the EV space, we are forging ahead with a fuel cell vehicle in California. And just we'll show you some images of the latest products shortly. But we do have products that we recently announced coming in 2022. And if you're interested in seeing concept videos, those are on our Global Press Room website or our North American Press Room websites, and they're available for anyone to watch. Next slide, please. So in terms of how we decide when and where we're going to start introducing vehicles and what types of vehicles we should introduce, we look very carefully at regional differences of our customers. Now, my team is looking at the North American customer, but there are teams like mine in other global regions of the world feeding our parent company in Japan similar information relevant to their country. And I collaborate most often with either the folks in China or the folks in Europe. But in terms of breaking down the United States, California is obviously a very important market, and it's where we actually have our largest percentage of sales. And they also happen to be the main leader and driving force behind ZEV policy. But the lifestyle that is experienced by a California customer is a bit different than what we see in the Northeast or the South, for example. And we do things like focus group interviews, investigating what is important to customers and what matters to them. And some key learnings that won't surprise you are the fact that Northeast customers do see weather and climate as something of which it's a bit of a war for them, fighting winter every year. We see California customers seeing more oneness with nature And in the southeast of the US, there's much more focus on family and nurturing and hospitality. So when you understand the psychographic drivers behind customers, you start to understand a little bit more of the detail behind the purchase decision. Let's go to the next slide, please. So you may be wondering, what's happening with customers today, and who's buying these electrified products. And we are still very much in a gasoline vehicle market, with most people moving from a gasoline vehicle into a gasoline vehicle. That's that gray section over on the left. Now, to understand what's happening in the electrified space, we blew up that graphic for you and put that on the right, because it is such a small share still of the US market. And what you see here is that the people that are choosing to buy EVs, just because the main portion of the market is gas, they're mainly coming from gas vehicles. They're skipping right over other electrified options. But there certainly still is flow from people from hybrids directly to EVs, and of course, plug-in hybrid as well. So just gives you an idea. Plug-in hybrid is still the smallest share of market at just 0.5%. And that's very interesting, because some people consider it to be such an interesting solution to a lot of customer problems. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. Next slide. So in terms of our electrification forecast, we have gone on record with our own forecast. And this is something that my team developed, and it's independent of anything that you may read from either an industry analyst organization or one of the investment banks. But our forecast is that 15% of US sales in 2030 will be EVs and fuel cells. And our perspective on vehicles that adding different levels of hybrid to that is that would be 70% of the market by 2030. Now, globally, Toyota sells about 10 million vehicles a year, and we're committing that 8 million vehicles would be electrified by 2030. That's a pretty big chunk of vehicles when you consider that means converting over your supply chain and all of your manufacturing. It's not a simple thing to take a legacy business and convert it to a new technology in such a short order. So that's the challenge that's facing us, and we're quite committed to that. Next slide, please. So some of you may be familiar with the Rogers Innovation Adoption Curve, and that type of business school thinking is really applicable to understanding how customers adopt technology. And there's a few things about this that I would point out. One is that demographically, you tend to have people that are more affluent, higher educated, younger, more male, being interested in new technology adoption. And part of that is a psychographic component, people who are interested in giving enthusiastic referrals, who enjoy telling others about their purchases. But there's also a high tolerance for risk, that if the vehicle or other new technology products you buy doesn't actually turn out to be as great as you had hoped. Think for a moment about 3D television, for example, that yes, you spent the money to jump in there and be the early adopter and tell everybody about it. But it's not the end of the day. If it doesn't work out and you step away, you just move on to the next thing that attracts you. So those are the types of people that are buying EVs now. And when we look in the upper area of the table, a lot of the early activity that happened in the last decade was really regulatory compliance driven. And it was really, a situation where we had some representation in a few segments, but infrastructure obviously being new, very modestly available. So you can understand from a customer's perspective, there is an element of risk to being an adopter. But we're moving into a period of time where there's going to be a lot more nameplate competition. We're moving from 17 nameplates in 2020 to what we're expecting to be over 100 in 2025. And just as a scale, there are a little over 200 nameplates in the US vehicle market today. So to have another 100 join the market, that's a 50% increase that we're projecting. So there's going to be a lot of choice. We think that that's going to drive a lot of price competition, and that's going to help move the customer adoption over. But we do see that it's going to happen in luxury first, because luxury tends to bring more people that are less price sensitive. They're more comfortable making choices that, well, basically are a risk with lifestyle. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more here shortly. Next slide. So here are some of those customer expectations that I was alluding to. You know, people that are buying EVs now, they are primarily using their vehicles to commute, do errands, and take fun drives. You know, date night with your significant other on the weekend, maybe with another couple. They're interested in performance. It's okay if they don't get all the range that they're looking for. They're willing to tolerate inconvenience with charging. That's part of the adventure of adopting new technology for them. We've talked to customers who have discussed their adventures with using different charging networks and plotting out longer trips based on charge station locations and finding them. They are able to justify their purchase, talking about federal, state tax credits or HOV programs. They feel really good about their purchase. When we talk to mainstream customers and we ask them about their interest in EV adoption, what we hear them talking about are use cases where EVs today are not quite ready. Things like towing, hauling, and long trips. This idea that they need to be able to drive quite long distances without having to stop to charge because they're frankly not comfortable with the charging experience. They still think of charging like going to a gas station. They don't think of the convenience of being able to charge at home overnight the way you charge your cell phone, for example. They worry about weather conditions and being stranded. So much more practical and pragmatic concerns. But they do see that the technology is coming. They're just not sure if it's their next vehicle or their next vehicle where they would be willing to consider. Next slide. So this is my final slide in the discussion, but I'm alluding to a customer use case with that explanation of what's on the minds with customers today. And there's different use cases for different technologies. And Toyota's philosophy is that in our customers' best interest, we should offer different technologies that perform different use cases well, that they're well suited to those. So when we're looking toward a future of how can we best offer products that fit into the ZEV category and deliver well on the use cases, there's some things that we need to occur in the energy sector for the market to be prepared and ready for the customer expectation. So what I'm showing you there in the FCV box is a very fun YouTube video that you may want to check out, showing the Toyota Portal project towing in a drag race video against a diesel semi. And it's a lot of fun to watch. You'd be quite surprised how well fuel cell can tow. But if we want to come to a day where a customer can go on a long camping trip with their family, enjoy the national parks, we're going to need a few things from the energy sector. We're going to need a national infrastructure. We're going to need a reliable supply of hydrogen, and we're going to need it to be green hydrogen at an affordable cost versus gasoline. That's what it's going to take to make that technology viable, to meet that need. Customers are not going to want to stop every couple hours to charge for 5 or wait in line at an EV station. That's just not practical. However, they're going to really enjoy that EV for in-town use, and we're going to have a variety of products for that. But part of making that adoption work for the mainstream customer, not every customer is going to have a single car garage at home that has electricity and has space for a charging station or the electrical power to support it. We're going to need to come up with affordable solutions for that person but also for people in multi-dwelling households and people who just don't have a garage that have street parking. And we also have to think about charging networks. Currently, they all have different payment systems, and customers don't like that. It's not like the gas station where your Visa works everywhere. So that concludes my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was excellent. Very interesting. I'm curious about the national energy infrastructure and how much the automotive manufacturers are really working with the national government. It would just make sense that they are. So to wrap things up, I'm going to introduce Matthew Cohen, who serves as a partner and the lead for Direct Recruiters, Energy, Sustainability, and HVAC Practice. Matthew was actually named a partner in 2020 after building their new clean energy practice. Matthew focuses on energy sustainability, including energy management software, renewable energy, energy storage, smart building technology, electric vehicles, and clean transportation. Matthew's ultimate goal is to help candidates wishing to get started or transition into the clean energy sector. Direct Recruiters is recognized nationally and internationally as a top recruiting firm by Forbes and Hunt Scanlon, and as a top place to work by Inc. Magazine, North Coast 99, and The Plain Dealer. Thank you for being with us today, Matthew.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me. Thanks to Seawell for the invitation. This is really great so far. So, yeah, what I wanted to talk about today is really three things. One is kind of the trends and the in-demand markets we're seeing in the energy and sustainability sector. And then we're going to talk about some ways to navigate that job market if you are looking to change careers or move up to the next logical step in your career as a whole. So go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk about some growth areas in energy and sustainability. And the areas that I highlighted are really areas that focus either directly with the clean transportation sector, are similar, or interact directly with it. The first one being, the smart area that I spend a lot of time in, which is the smart buildings technologies and smart cities technology sector. This is a sector that has been growing for many, many years. And we're seeing really a push, especially from private equity in this area, especially in the smart cities vertical, which directly relates to vehicle charging, because most cities that are looking to modernize, integrate their technologies and buildings together are looking at electric vehicle charging as a part of that solution. So that's an area that really has a lot of growth and very exciting, and the technologies and the skills that are needed are very similar to what the clean transportation sector is looking for. Environmental, social, and corporate governance. This is another area that we're seeing a lot of growth. Corporations are really looking to understand how the decisions they make are affecting their own carbon emissions, the human impact, and how the decisions affect the corporation's overall sustainability goals. And the types of skills and people they're looking for can really range between people with business backgrounds, technical backgrounds, to really understand the full impact of decisions that they make related to their own carbon footprint. One area that's really, really exciting, I spend a lot of time in, is the energy analytics and software industry. I think I missed a slide here. And that industry is really exciting because for the past about, I'd say, 15 years or so, the energy software market has really focused in a reactive capacity. So you get data from a particular building or utility, and then the building owner decides what to do based on that data. What we're seeing now is a push towards machine learning and AI technologies that are being more proactive. So these buildings and smart cities are able to really think on their own a little bit and having a quicker reaction to their energy efficiency as opposed to being reactive. So that's really exciting. Obviously, things we've been talking about, energy and battery storage is crucial in the EV charging and clean transportation sector. We see a lot of private equity money being put towards that area, and there are a lot of different ancillary industries where battery storage is prevalent. So that's really exciting. And then obviously grid modernization. So, one thing I think the previous two speakers would certainly share and agree with me is if you decided to, just plant, 1 million plus EV charging stations across the country, the current grid as we know it today certainly wouldn't be able to handle it. So we have to really reimagine how we deliver and manage our energy usage. And that's a really powerful industry that both utilities and the companies that support them are going to be investing in. So those are the areas of growth that we really see that are exciting. So if we can go to the next slide, please. After this one more. Be great. Next slide after this. So went too far. So the next thing I want to talk about is really the in-demand skills that we see in the energy and sustainability market. And these are skills that I really wanted to focus on that are more of the soft skills that we see out there. So the first one really focuses on adaptability. So being able to be flexible in a rapidly changing economy, world, and of course the industry that we see, understand that adaptability. So when things do change, we're able to pivot, and people that have that ability is going to be really important. The next one really is probably the most important, which is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is defined as the capacity to be aware of, control, express one's emotions, to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. And the empathetically part is really important because especially anyone who is in a customer-facing position in the clean energy space must have empathy to be able to understand the needs of the customer, the needs of the consumer, and to react appropriately to it. And that's really, really important. And the other part, of course, is we all deal with, especially this past year, is self-awareness and self-regulation of our emotions. So being able to understand how to do that is really something that can be helpful in high-pressure situations, and people who have that high level of emotional intelligence are able to take on those more stressful roles. Having a growth mindset, being able to have a clear understanding of your personal and professional goals, and not just what those goals are, but how you want to achieve them. That's going to be crucial for people as they get hired into the next role, because they want to understand what their goals are, and so the company that they work with can help them achieve them. Persuasion, that's a newer one that's within some of the soft skills that are in demand right now for a lot of employers. Not necessarily, always convincing people of your point of view, but being able to do it effectively, having a say, understanding, that you have a point of view and you want to share it. Those are really important. Collaboration, working in a team to achieve a goal, that's something that's been around forever, but it's always been an important skill that's for, especially in any sector, but of course clean energy is, it's going to take a lot to reach some of the goals that we have. And then creativity, it's probably my favorite one. I always tell people I love new employees with bad ideas, because it can always lead to the good ones with the right mentorship. And so being someone that is not afraid to be creative, being someone that's not afraid to share an idea is something that I think employers really look for right now. And the best way to show a lot of these skills is to really give real-world examples when you are interviewing about when you've had to deal with these types of situations and how you handled it. Those are situations that are really exciting. So those are the in-demand soft skills that we think are really important. And then the next slide is going to focus on trends currently in the candidate market. So the job market really it's changed to pre-pandemic levels. This has been in the clean energy space for a while now, but as a whole, we're seeing definitely more openings than there are candidates to fill them. Even in industries that we're really struggling for the past years, restaurants and hotels are all really short-staffed with the demand that's coming here pretty soon. So it's certainly a good time to look for a new position or take one on, because the power now is on the candidate side to decide what they want to be doing with their career. Employers are certainly moving quickly to land top talent, sometimes too quickly, but it's certainly a good, if you want to get something quick, Certainly a good time to do that. Candidates receiving multiple offers. That's something that's pretty standard when you have a candidate-driven market. One of the troubling things that we see are candidates usually taking the first offer received, and we're going to talk about how to navigate that in a second. And also, candidates are starting to take what we call bridge jobs. So the definition really is focused on, candidate is looking for a new position. They don't really find the one they want, or they're trying to really, maybe they were laid off and they're trying to find something new, and they take one in the meantime as sort of a holdover for what they really want to do. And that can be detrimental to both the company they work for and the clients. We'll talk about, ways to navigate that. So if we go to the final slide, please. So when you're thinking about making a job change, you really want to ask a couple questions to yourself. The first one being, am I running away from a job or am I running towards one? And that's a question that I think not enough people ask themselves, especially if you're in a job you don't like and you're looking to make a change. If it's the latter where you're running, or if the former where you're running away from a job, I think it's really important to evaluate where you're going and if it's truly the right opportunity for you. Obviously, one that I always tell people to ask themselves is, if my current employer gave me a counteroffer, would I consider staying? And we could talk for days about why counteroffers are bad. 80% of all candidates who take a counteroffer are not with their company within 9 months, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But if the answer is anything but no way, you really need to evaluate, before you decide to give a resignation, which goes to the next question is, have I exhausted all avenues to improve my current position? I get, people call me all the time saying I'm due a raise for the past 3 years. I never received one. And I always ask, well, when's the last time you asked for one? And if the answer is I've never asked, well, you probably want to do that before you go and resign, because as maybe some people have dealt with this, when you go to resign, it's funny how, $10,000 in a promotion just falls from the sky. And so we want to combat that. And this is coming from someone, by the way, who makes their living getting people to change jobs. But I still think it's important to make sure people ask these questions before they commit to an opportunity, before they go and give a resignation to their current job, to make sure that it's really, you're not running away from one, you're really running towards one. And the other thing to think about too that a lot of people don't is, are there opportunities I was interested in that I did not move forward, or on hold, or I never heard back from? Nothing is worse than taking a new job, being excited about it, but then there was another one that you were just excited about that called you as you were onboarding in your new job, and you didn't have an opportunity to evaluate it fully. So making sure that you're able to, exhaust all the things that you're in front of you before you make a final decision. Obviously, what's just an important, what are the non-monetary reasons why this job is better than where I am today? Most people that I place aren't necessarily going to a new job for simply monetary reasons. But if that's the main driver, you really have to ask yourself, why beyond the benefits and compensation is this better where I am today? And if that's hard to answer, then I think you need to evaluate whether or not it's the right opportunity for you. And the last one is, will this new opportunity reach my personal and professional goals in the next 5 years? It's important to, when you are in an active job search, to really write those personal and professional goals down. And as you evaluate opportunities, really check off, do they meet all of the professional and professional goals that you have? A lot of times people kind of, compromise on one or two of them, and sometimes that can be okay. But for the most part, they usually regret it after joining. So like I said in the beginning, it's a candidate-driven market right now. It's really a good time to evaluate a new opportunity if you're looking for one, and you have the ability to really make sure that it reaches all of your goals. So that is my spiel for this, and I hope you learned something, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That was very interesting. It's interesting. It's not a good time to buy a house, and it is a good time to consider a new career. So folks on the call, let me give you some thoughts. We will be sharing a couple of you have asked about the slides, and yes, we will be sharing the slides with you all. And the last slide, Janine, if you go to the last one, should be the contact information for all of our panelists and me as well. So feel free to contact us directly. But we have just about 10 minutes now for some questions. And I see some here on the chat. I'm going to start with George's. He says, one of the challenges in the implementation of new things, and Amy and Margaret, I think this is for you, are there resource requirements to make the new things as well as material recycling methods, supply chains? What is being done to make sure that the mineral resources and reliable supply chains are available to feed the manufacturing sector and are not choke points for all of these new products and infrastructure requirements? Margaret or Amy, could either of you address that?
I can answer that from a Toyota perspective. So being able to recycle is very important to us. There's a few ways that we try to secure recycling efforts. One is that everyone who's making electric vehicles is considering secondary use battery cases, because the batteries that we're using in our applications do have more life in them, although they may not still be useful in an automobile. So that's definitely something that's active, and we have different trials going on for that space. In terms of securing the raw materials that we need, Toyota is very well regarded for its relationships with its suppliers. And we try to work very closely with them to understand raw material conditions and have a good outlook on that. Plus, we're also engaged on what you'd consider to be pure R&D effort. So we have, last I checked, when I still worked in the R&D part of the organization, we were the leading published organization on magnesium batteries, for example, kind of an interesting claim to fame. But what that means is we're always looking out to the future to try to move away from some of the types of elements where there is a lot of anticipated demand and concern about supply. So it's a multi-pronged effort, and it's not a clear answer. And on the sales side, I'm not actively engaged in that piece of it at this point in time because of my current focus, but I do know that I have colleagues that are working on those problems.
Yeah, I have some similar comments that I do know I have colleagues working on those problems, primarily in the R&D side of our office. I know there's a lot of work with battery technologies to look at technologies that can reduce the use of rare minerals. And we are investing in battery recycling efforts that are being led out of one of our DOE national laboratories, Argonne National Laboratory. And when it comes to reliable supply chains, you know, that is a real concern. That is a real challenge. Without consistent demand for, let's say, medium duty and heavy duty electric vehicles, a manufacturer can't dedicate aspects of their manufacturing equipment to that technology. You need to be able to have an expected quantity of orders each month or each week to dedicate those resources. And in a lot of cases, fleets that want to purchase a medium duty or electric or heavy duty electric vehicle have to wait a long time before they can actually get a hold of one for their fleet.
Yeah, and I understand. I think from a circularity standpoint, batteries are really interesting, and what's going to be done to, as you said, Amy, reusing them for different purposes and mining them for precious metals and so forth. We have a question here from Bill Pugh, and that is, what are the job growth areas in mobility, demand management, shared vehicles, low speed vehicles, micro mobility, and multimodal policy? Wow. I don't know, Matthew, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. And I'm going to put in the chat bar here in a second, the email on the slide is not right. So for those who want to reach out to me, I will put my correct email in there for you. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot. It's pretty broad as far as, especially in demand management, what we're seeing as far as in-demand opportunities. If people are interested in, data science and data analysis, there are lots of opportunities for that part of the industry. Program and project management is a huge one, and that does not necessarily require a technical background. So overseeing sustainability initiatives for a current employer, or overseeing a program for a particular product to be released or service to be released, project management in the operations part of the business for, especially, we see a ton of EV charging stations being constructed right now. I see an article almost every week about a new construction project. So those who can manage those resources, obviously sales and business development, always a hot position that's always available for those who have that persuasive skills to be able to do that. And then of course, those who have a technical background and want to stay in that area, mechanical and electrical engineers are always prevalent, and you don't necessarily have to have experience in sustainability. For those who want to get into that area, a solid mechanical electrical background is a good way to get into a lot of those areas.
It's
And
interesting.
I would add to that list working with state and local government agencies, state or city Department of Transportation, metropolitan planning organizations, regional planning commissions. There's always somebody, or there's usually somebody in those offices that's in charge of looking at, transportation demand management and micromobility and implementing city, state, local projects related to those topics.
Margaret, I was going to ask you on that. Are there specific technical skills that will be more useful, whether they be GIS, or what might be helpful to a candidate?
I think I would pass that back to Matthew when it comes to what would help a candidate in those fields. But urban planning or transportation planning comes to mind.
Can you ask that question again?
I was thinking of specific skill sets. When we were talking, I was thinking, are there specific designations? Because Matthew, you were talking about project management, and I was thinking PMP. I know Amy Stanley's a PMP. Is that really useful? Or do we want people who have GIS? I know there's a lot of different directions a person could go, but I think we're looking at what's hot right now. What's kind of new? What's evolving
Sure.
as a new skill need?
Yeah, absolutely. So, professional project management, that PMP sector is always a good thing to have. I don't see it as much of an in-demand accreditation as it used to be. What I see more than anything, especially in demand management, and even sometimes in smart cities or similar areas, is really that certified energy manager title. So if someone can get their CEM, and necessarily actually most of the time I see people without a mechanical degree or electrical degree get that CEM certification. That gives you a pretty broad experience and understanding of different parts of the sustainability world. So having that CEM title on the top of your resume puts you into a lot of different categories. So that's one I recommend for the moment. And that's, by the way, something that's always changing as far as what we used to be. LEED was always something that you had to have, and now not so much. So I think that CEM, Certified Energy Manager certification, is something that I would recommend for those who want to go that route.
Mm-hmm. If we don't have any other questions, I think it's a wrap. We will, Janine, do you know what is the strategy for slides? Will we be posting them on the seawheel.org website, or will we be sending them to participants?
We'll be sending them to participants along with the recording.
All right, folks. So you will get everything. And thank you so much for our fabulous panelists. You guys did a wonderful job, and thank you for educating us. It's really great. Thanks to all the participants for joining us. And thank you, Seawheel and Janine, for hosting this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.